Okay.
Because
Okay.
it's just, it is not, it's not going to be easy to spend the money in the 8 weeks and then, you know, turn around and apply for the new one. Yes, if you applied before March 31st and it's not extended, it's possible you could get both, but I don't think it's probable.
So if in reality we can do the forgiveness, and if we still have
No, you
time.
don't need to get the first draw forgiven. You just need to use the money in the 8-week
Right.
period.
Okay, let me interrupt Sister and Joseph here. Let's get the program started here, and then any questions after the presentation, because what Joseph have for you is going to be jam-packed. So I'm going to have we're going to open up for a Q&A just so that, you know, everybody hears your question, and let's give everybody a chance and opportunity to know what's going on. Okay, good afternoon from, actually good afternoon from Joseph's time now too, because he's at 12 p.m. over there. So good afternoon, everybody. Some of you guys know it's Chinese New Year coming up. So I just want to wish everybody a Chinese New Year. Happy Chinese New Year. This year is the year of the ox. Go bull, go bullish, right? Hopefully you have win all your endeavors. And I just want to briefly introduce a little bit about our organization as we're getting started with the program here. You know,
you muted yourself.
You muted yourself.
Okay, you can hear me now. Okay. So yeah, you know, our office is in South Philadelphia, our very own office. My sister and I, we actually opened in 2017. So this is just from our group of people here. We wish you Happy New Year's and give you all the red envelopes out there. And hopefully through the event that Joseph and us we're gonna do, you're gonna be able to claim more money. So you will be receiving more red envelopes, right? Okay, and just share with you our service. You know, we are a financial broker, so we work with many lines of products and services out there. So we help people in many different ways, whether it's, college planning, retirement, life insurance, estate planning, you name it, we are there. And meet our team of people here. If you need to reach out to us, some of you guys connect us through WeChat. Reach out to us, screenshot this page so that way you could add us so we can add you onto the WeChat group, where if you want to be more connected with Joseph Amato, you could do that. Phone number, name, WeChat code, all of that. You can actually scan the code and get connected with us. So we are here to help you. I am just going to go through that, and then I'm going to pull up Joseph's slide. So now it's definitely my honor for me to invite Joseph Amato to hop onto this meeting again. One, I really want to appreciate Joseph for being an amazing guy. He's been so wonderful, always so willing to help, going that extra mile. Sometimes you don't think he would be, answering, but like sometimes 3 a.m. my time, maybe like 12 o'clock his time, and he's still answering people's questions. I don't think he needs to do that, especially, where his title, District Director of SBA, for his title, he definitely doesn't need to be doing that, but yet he's so willing to help our community. And, how did we connect it? I mean, I saw Joseph did a presentation similarly, and I looked up Joseph and I'm like, oh, he is from that formal SBA website. And then I said, there's his phone number, there's his email. I shoot him email. I got a phone call like a Monday morning, and that's how we got connected. And I said, Joe, whatever you're doing is great. We need everybody in our community here know. And since then, we've been doing so many, presentations on Zoom. And right now we're actually recorded. We're also live on Facebook. So we definitely want to create more awareness to everybody about PPP program here. So as I am pulling up, Joe, you could actually get started. You could say something, but we're just very grateful. And some of you guys who are here, you probably know that Joseph has been amazing help for our entire, community here. And now today, the purpose of today, I said, a lot of people have questions about loan forgiveness. Today is the time where we got to talk about loan forgiveness so people are more prepared for it. So in case if you still have questions about PPP2, we will be answering them as well. All right, I'm gonna give the mic all the way to Joe. Any questions, Joe, or anything you want to say? All to yours. I'm gonna pull up the slide right now.
Okay, it's a pleasure being here again. Obviously, I think this is our maybe 7th or 8th one we've done together, and it's already my 22nd one this year for PPP2. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be supporting your community, the Asian community in general, and very happy to basically answer questions. What we're going to share is basically a slide presentation from the SBA. Obviously, I work for the SBA and represent the SBA. Although I'm the head of Nevada, I basically do whatever I can nationally. And Jinping, you've been a great asset for me to get the information out to individuals nationally. Next slide. I don't care what Colin Powell said. Next slide. Okay, we're going to talk about the 7 key topics to understand forgiveness, the loan forgiveness application, some tips, FAQs, which is frequently asked questions, and some SBA resources. I just received this morning, so hopefully this will be very helpful in what we're trying to get done. Next slide, please. All right, next slide. Okay, so we're going to cover what a covered payroll period means, what cash compensation, salaries for owners who are self-employed or general partners, what the FTE calculation means, what the safe harbors are. Some of this stuff is going to be really relevant to what we're doing because it's more generic for the whole SBA program. But the ones that are specific, I'll speak to in specific terms to make sure that when it comes to forgiveness, whether it's PPP1 forgiveness or PPP2 forgiveness, that you all have a great sense of what you need to do in order to get it done successfully. Next slide, please. Okay, so everybody talks about the covered payroll period. And it can get really, really confusing sometimes because the covered payroll period is either going to be 8 weeks from the date that the loan proceeds are dispersed, or any 24 weeks, basically, or 24 weeks from the date the loan proceeds are dispersed to the end of the 24-week period, which is either 56 days or 168 days. So that's only when the loan is dispersed. Day 1, you're supposed to use the money within 8 weeks or within 24 weeks. But there's alternative periods too, which the SBA has been a little bit more understanding because like here in Nevada, we have Las Vegas. You got your PPP funding, but the governor has shut your business down and you're going to be shut down for 30 days. You may need an alternative period other than the day you receive the funds. And that basically is something that the SBA has been very helpful with. Now, let's remember something more important than anything. Most of the loans are under $150,000 that receive PPP. If you receive less than $150,000, there's even going to be more leniency with most lenders, not all lenders. Some lenders are still being a little bit more sticky on the rule, but in most cases, you're going to be automatically forgiven anyway. So, but again, as long as you don't violate the use of the money, as long as you don't use it illegally, or you don't buy a boat with it or put a down payment on a house, you're usually going to be forgiven. So with an alternative period, if a borrower has a biweekly payroll or an alternate payroll period, like say you pay once a month, you're allowed to use that ultimate opening date as your start date. And then you still have to disperse the funds within 8 to 24 weeks. Okay, next slide. Okay, so for individuals that basically they get cash compensation, okay, that could be cash compensation, that could be even 1099s, which we'll talk about later. You would use that. You can only remember everybody can only get up to $100,000. So no matter what you get in cash compensation, you can only use up to $100,000. If you use the 8-week covered period, the total amount that you can use is $15,380 something dollars. I can't remember. I'm hiding it. $385. If you are using a 24-week period, you can use up to $46,154. So this became a problem with a lot of independent contractors. They got $20,832. And somehow the SBA threw this curveball in, and they were showing an 8-week covered period, and they said, well, you're only forgiven for $15,385. But then they came back and said, but you approved me for $20,832. Do I have to pay the rest of the forgiveness loan? And what the banks were doing is they were just changing the coverage period from 8 to 24 weeks so that the full 20,832 would be absorbed. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Oh, okay. So if a 24-week coverage period applies for any owner, employee, or self-employed individual, like a 1099, then salary cap is 20,833. So remember, if you're an independent contractor, you should disperse the money over 24 weeks as opposed to 8 weeks, and then you'll be able to get the full amount forgiven. If the borrower collects an 8-week period, it doesn't make any sense to do so. You'd only get 15,385. So most of the good banks, what they were doing is they were just changing the cover period from 8 weeks to 24 weeks so that the full forgiveness amount would be taken into consideration. I mean, that makes sense, correct? Right. Next slide, please. Okay, so now they're talking about FTEs. FTEs, for those who don't know, mean full-time equivalent or full-time employment. So for each employee, whether it's the recovery period or alternative period, basically you have to have an FTE count. You take the average number of hours paid per week divided by 40 and round it to the nearest tenth. So if you have 40 hours, that's 1 employee, 80 hours, 2 employees, so on and so forth. So each employee will get assigned 40 hours per week and a half for less than 40 hours. I'll tell you the truth, with most people that I've done PPP forgiveness with or helped them, we almost completely disregard this whole section, because at the end of the day, your payroll reports are going to show how much you received or how much money was spent. And as long as that amount was 60% or greater of your PPP amount and the non-payroll was 40% or less, it really doesn't matter how many people that you have, because there's all kinds of safe harbors that come into play as well. So just keep that in mind as well. Okay, next slide too. Okay, so here's safe harbor. So for whatever reason, you're not able to receive the same level of employment as before February 15, 2020, due to different compliance and guidelines and requirements, you will be forgiven no matter how many employees you have. So if you had 10 when you applied for PPP and you only have 5 because only 5 would come back, you're going to be, that's called safe harbor. You're going to be forgiven no matter what, especially if your loan's under 150,000, which most of you will be. Next slide, please. And then if the borrower is reduced FTE employees during the period of time, that's also allowed too. I mean, again, at the end of the day, you're trying to employ as many people as possible during your PPP, but there are things that are coming, extenuating circumstances. People get COVID, get sick, and you can't replace them. Then all of a sudden you're going to be stuck with less employees. Do not fear, you will still be forgiven. Next slide, please. Okay, the 6 reduction exceptions. For any employees during the covered period, the borrower made good faith written offer to rehire the employees, were fired for cause, people voluntarily resigned, they voluntarily requested and received a reduction for their hours, borrower made a good faith attempt offer to the employees other than to other employees to come in and their offer was rejected. And the borrower was unable to hire similarly qualified employees for unfilled positions before the end of last year. Any FTE reductions in these cases do not reduce the borrower's loan forgiveness. So these are all, if you try to, all you have to do is attest and certify that you tried to get all your employees back, that they did not want to come back, or some got sick, or somebody had a fire because they were not doing their job, or they voluntarily resigned. You do not have to worry about not getting SBA PPP forgiveness if any of these things happen. Next slide. Okay, so what is payroll cost? So let's make sure we realize what all that is. So payroll cost is basically your gross compensation, compensation to employees in the form of salary, wages, commissions, similar compensation, cash tips or equivalents. And that basically is your base payroll cost. Then any payment for vacation, parental, family, medical leave, or sick leave, that's also considered payroll cost. Any allowances that if an employee separates during the payroll period, during your 8 or 24-week period, that is a payroll cost. Any payment for provision of employee benefits, including group health care, insurance premiums, and retirement. So this is basically, this has gone back and forth whether or not retirement pay can be included in payroll costs. Obviously, this is saying it is. It can. Payment for state and local taxes assessed as compensation of employees. And for, and this is interesting, and for independent contractors or sole proprietor, where wages, commissions, income, and net earnings from self-employed and similar compensation. So remember, the independent contractor or sole proprietor can't be used in the payroll cost of a person, of a business, but the independent contractor can apply for PPP on their own. So let's not get confused here that you can add independent contractors to your payroll amounts. Now, I just actually met with a business that had independent contractors, but all their independent contractors were also included on their 941s, and they were covering taxes for independent contractors, which was very strange. Never saw that before. It was a Chinese business as well. So we were able to inflate or increase the amount of payroll costs that they have because they weren't truly independent contractors. If you're paying them and paying taxes for them, then you're basically, they're still employees, but you're paying them as 1099, which is very strange. So we're trying to figure out how to fix that for them because I've never seen it before like that, but obviously with this situation, it worked out that way. Next slide, please. Okay, so summary of eligible payroll costs for payroll. So payroll costs paid and payroll costs incurred during the 8-week or 24-week period. Payroll costs are considered paid on the day that the paychecks are distributed and the borrower originates an ACH credit transaction. Payroll costs are considered incurred on the day the employee's pay is earned. So there's some people that get accrued payroll and you may not pay them out, but a week deferred, but they've already accrued it because they put in the time. So that counts as payroll costs. And payroll costs incurred, but not paid during the borrower's last pay period of the covered period are also eligible for forgiveness. Otherwise, payroll costs must be incurred or expensed during the covered period. Next slide. Summary of eligible non-payroll costs. Now remember, this is going to change for PPP2. So initially it was mortgage interest payments, okay? It was rent and lease payments, and it was payments for distribution of utilities, electric, gas, water, transportation, telephone, internet access, okay? So utility costs. Remember, the non-payroll costs can't exceed 40% in order to get to the total forgiveness, and count non-payroll costs that were both paid and incurred only once. So remember, for PPP2, they've added operating expenses, which is a very general term. They've added supplier expenses, very general term. They've added any expenses you add for PPE, that's pay protection equipment. So masks, if you have a business that you put up plexiglass screens, if you, disinfectant lotion, any of that you pay money for, that can be an eligible non-payroll PPP cost, okay? And I think the last one, did I forget one? Let's see, it's operating expenses, supplier expenses, PPE. Oh, and if you incurred any damage due to riots during the summer months and had to make repairs to your business, those are also eligible PPP non-payroll costs, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, so at this point, I'll generally talk about, I know that you were going to have Amanda Prochaska on, who basically is not with the SBA, and I'm not directly associated with her, but she has been involved with some of the banks I work with in putting together the PPP forgiveness application program, taking my documents and my information and putting them into DocuSign and aiding several banks across the Western region in the PPP application process. There is a new forgiveness application. It's called the 3508EZ for loans under 150,000, which will be most of you. It's 3 pages long. It's separated into 3 sections. Pages 1 and 2 must be submitted to the lender. Pages 1 include the PPP forgiveness application. Page 2 is the certification. Then page 3 is the borrower demographics, which you can or don't have to give to your lender. Remember, all applications for forgiveness go to the lender that lent you the PPP funds. It doesn't go to the SBA. It doesn't go to my Aunt Joyce. It doesn't go to the President of the United States. It goes to the lender that gave you the PPP funds. Champagne, you're supposed to smile. I told a joke.
I'm actually reading the self-employed part.
Okay. And basically, as Champagne was just alluding to, this application, the 3508EZ, is only for the following type of borrowers: self-employed who have no employees, did not reduce the salaries or wages of their employees by more than 25%, did not reduce the number of hours to their employees, or experienced reduction in business activity as a result of health directives related to COVID-19, and did not reduce the salaries or wages of employees by more than 25%. So these are the people that generally are 3508EZs, but I'm telling you, basically every loan under 150,000 that's been submitted under 3508EZ was accepted by the SBA or by the lender and then submitted to the SBA. Next slide, please. So this is basically the document. Do you want me to start going through this in general terms?
Yeah, if you could give us a little info, just really briefly over it, because later we
Okay.
can definitely have Amanda to hop on and then give us more of the technical part.
Okay, sounds great. So in this form, the most important things you need, do you have like an arrow that you can point things as I say?
I got you.
There you go.
I got you.
Okay. So, right. So that's the most important thing right there is what your PPP loan number was for your PPP loan. It's important for this, your loan forgiveness for PPP1, but it's also very important, as Champagne will tell you, for your application for PPP2. You have to know what that number is. You also have to know what the loan amount was exactly. I'm seeing PPP2s get rejected because they put the wrong PPP loan amount in their application for PPP2. So remember, your SBA PPP loan number for your PPP1 and your PPP loan amount for PPP1 are very important things. Your lender loan number, that should come when you get funded. And the disbursement date, obviously, you'll be able to check back to your emails when it actually dispersed. The number of employees at the time of application, the number of employees at the time for forgiveness. And previously, you needed to know your idle advance amount and your idle application number. Now, something that has changed in the process, and I'm going back to some other notes, is the idle advances are no longer deducted from PPP loan forgiveness payments. So that was happening for a while. So that's, you still have to put that information in there, but it's not going to affect your loan forgiveness anymore. Congress changed that rule, thankfully. And now we're in a situation where you still have to give the information for forgiveness of PPP1 or PPP2, but it does not come into calculation. You also will talk about what your payroll schedule is, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, twice a month, other, what your covered period is, and if you used an alternate period. And then if the borrower together with affiliates receive PPP loans in excess of 2 million, you'll check there. Okay, next slide, please. Then there's the most 8 important lines, okay? The first line is how much did you pay on payroll? The second line is if you paid anything toward mortgage interest. The third line is if you paid anything toward rents or lease payments. The fourth is, did you make any utility payments? You're going to add all 4 of those lines up to line 5. Then you're going to say what your PPP loan amount is. So say those top 5 come to $100,000, okay? And your PPP loan amount was $100,000. Line 7 is the most confusing to a lot of people. You're going to take your payroll costs, your 60, your 60%. So say of the $100,000, you spent $60,000. You're going to take that $60,000, right? And you're going to divide it. Remember the word divide, because a lot of people were multiplying it and they were wrong. And what you do is you're going to say $60,000 divided by 60%. And guess what that equals? $100,000. Guess what? So your $100,000 line 7 is looking at, you got $100,000 you spent, $100,000 PPP loan amount, a $100,000 line 7. So that means your forgiveness amount will be the smallest of the line 5, 6, and 7, which is $100,000 because they're all equal to $100,000. So in essence, you're fully forgiven. That's how they calculate it. You're going to take your payroll costs. So say your payroll costs were $100,000. Okay. So you take the $100,000 and you divide it by 60%. And that number is $166,666.67. So your line 7 would be 166,666. Your line 5 will be 100,000. Your line 6 will be 100,000. And if you look at your line 8, it says, what's the lowest amount? That's what you're going to be forgiven. It's going to be $100,000. You're fully forgiven. Okay. That's how this form works. And it's easy to use. Very easy to use.
So
Okay.
I'm going to do an example for in case people who have received funds as an independent contractor, if you do this, you would notice that it's way more than your approved amount, but we're looking at the smallest number. So with the
Right.
smallest number, you're going to pretty much pick that amount, which is that $20,833 or $32. Is it 800? Is it
Yes.
32 or 33? Because I noticed
Some banks give 33 and some banks give 32.
I will want to get extra $1.
Well, if you get it forgiven, so be it. Go give it to the poor.
Okay, because
All
it says so 33.
I know. I understand. So under this scenario, basically, like what Champagne just said, your line 7 will be 34,320. Your line 5 will be 20,832. Your line 6 will be 20,832. You're going to take the smallest of the three and get 100% forgiven. Okay. So that's how you use your 3508 EZ form. Okay. Let's do next slide. Let me see what that says. Okay. So the next page, page 2, is all your certifications attestation. So they're going to basically ask you to initial, thank you, each, not check them off, initial. So it's going to say Champagne Wu on each one of them. And it's going to be not with your computer, it's going to be by hand. So the first question they're asking is the dollar amount forgiveness requested was pay to use employees, 60%, 24 weeks, blah, blah, blah. You're going to say, sign it off, initial it. Next, I understand if funds were knowingly used for unauthorized purposes, the federal government can throw you in jail. You're going to sign that one. The third one, bar did not reduce salaries by more than 25%, blah, blah, blah. You're going to initial that one. Borrower has accurately verified the payments of eligible payroll costs, non-payroll costs, and the borrower is requesting forgiveness. You're going to sign that one. Okay? Next slide.
Go get the extra $1.
Yes. You're so funny. Okay.
So yeah.
So the next question is, I've submitted the lender required documentation verifying blah, blah, blah. Yes. You're going to initial that. Information provided is the application. Information provided all supporting documentation is true. You're going to initial that. The tax documents I submitted to lender are consistent with the bar submitted with the IRS. You're going to initial that. I stand and acknowledge and agree the SBA may request additional information. You're going to initial that. Next slide. And then the last two, you have to initial at least one. The bar did not reduce the number of employees, blah, blah, blah. Bar was unable to operate between these covered period, blah, blah, blah. You're an initial one of those two. That's going to help you, especially if there's a delay in how you use the money.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're going to sign it. You're going to print your name and you're going to put your title. Next slide. Somebody have a question?
We'll open the panel for questions in a bit.
Okay, so if you're not at 3508, which is probably very few people on this, so we're going to go through this real quick. There's a revised forgiveness schedule, which is 5 pages long as opposed to 3. You're still going to do your PPP forgiveness application. You're still going to do your certifications, but they're adding a Schedule A. Okay, and this is for most of the time $150,000 or greater. Okay, next slide. Schedule A worksheet. Okay, so so everything else is the same as the 3508 EZ except for this document. So here, if you do have more than 150,000, they're going to ask you to list your employees and during the covered period, the alternate period, that type of thing. And anybody received compensation from the borrower and the analyzed rate, and it can't exceed 100,000. So Schedule A is basically just providing a list of your employees. What a lot of businesses did, they just provided an ADP report that ADP or one of the payroll services had put together specifically for PPP forgiveness. And that's the only difference between the two. Next slide. It's okay, same thing. And then you're basically, here's some questions that are alluding to Schedule A, the support document, how much, what your average FTEs were, what kind of compensation you gave, and you just basically go down each section, which I'm going to have, I think Amanda's going to take this on when she comes on the phone, if she's not been on, or if she's not already on. Amanda, are you on already?
I don't think she is yet. She'll
Okay.
be happy.
I know she had a conflict that she was trying to get out as quickly as possible.
Right. I don't think I see her name yet. Let me.
Okay.
Check.
Okay. Next slide. Okay. All
We're
this
just gonna
stuff.
save that for Amanda then.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just open the panel for questions.
Okay, let me touch on three things before. So the thing that borrowers must understand with PPP loan forgiveness, and this is from the latest and greatest from the SBA, is that several things. The dollar advance is no longer deducted from your PPP loan forgiveness payment. Expenses paid with PPP loan funds are federally tax deductible. So if you've got $100,000 PPP and you used it all for your payroll, you can still include those payroll expenses in your P&L. You're not necessarily, you don't put the money, you don't show, it's very interesting. You don't show the PPP loan as revenue. It's basically just a balance sheet thing that goes in and out, but you can show the expenses. So say your business did $1 million and you got a PPP loan of 250,000. You don't show the 250,000 to 250,000. You don't add it to your $1 million in revenue that you earned as a business. You only keep it at the $1 million. But that 250,000 that you paid toward payroll is in the body of the P&L. It's an expense. It's allowable expense. Now imagine this. Let's put it this way. The IRS shouldn't allow that because this is a grant, or this is basically a grant fund. And normally the IRS would not allow you to expense it. But Congress passed a rule that said, listen, we don't want unanticipated profits for a business if they have to disallow expenses. So all those who understand what I'm talking about, it was a very important move that Congress pulled to basically get individuals to the point that they could basically expense this. There's expanded forgivable expenses are permissible for any unforgiven PPP loan. So if you don't get a portion forgiven, you can basically expand your forgivable expenses for the unforgiven portion. So say you spent 25,000 of that 100,000 on printing, and that's a non-forgivable expense, and you end up with a $25,000 loan, you could still put that 25,000 on your P&L. And the most important thing is anyone under 150,000, there's going to be a very simplified application process, just the 2 pages we just went over with 3508EZ. And you know, that's the intention of the bank and the SBA is to forgive as many as possible, to forgive them all under 150,000. Okay, so that's what I want to just let everybody know. I'll take questions now.
Wow, that's so, I really love number 2. I mean, actually, I like 1 and 2 and 3. There's really great modifications there. So, Joe, one of the questions is that, is EIDL loan advance tax deductible or are they taxable?
Remember, EIDL's a loan. Okay, do you pay taxes on loans?
No, you don't.
So that's your answer. You don't pay
Cool.
taxes.
Thank you. All right. Actually, another one. Before I start asking, I came across a lot of people who had applied for PPP1 and they have received funds, but when it comes down to PPP2, where they would like to apply with Amanda, for example, because you know they will qualify for more money. One of the hurdle is that they're stuck with, they don't know what is the PPP1 loan number and loan amount they know, but not the loan number. So how should we go about it? Because when you ask the lender, like Chase Bank or any of those, you know, Wells Fargo, whatever, you're just like on a loop. You ask, hey, what is it? They're like, you got to ask SBA. SBA says you got to ask the bank. So what is the best advice on that?
Okay, so if I understand the question, so if somebody applied for PPP1 and didn't get it,
They
They
did
could-
get the money and they want to
Okay.
apply PPP2, but they want to apply with possibly Amanda because they could qualify for more money, for example.
okay, well, I mean, you're not, in PPP2, you do not have to go back to your original lender. So there's no
That's
problem
true.
there.
We know that, but we don't know the loan number. How do we get the loan number? SBA.
If somebody has a problem, okay, with, they don't remember their loan number, I would say this is what they need to do. They need to send to Amanda, if you're working with Amanda, the name of your company, the name of the company on the application for PPP1, and the exact dollar amount you received for PPP1. She will normally then forward that to somebody in my office, who will then find out what the PPP loan number is.
Okay, well, we're waiting for that number. There's like a couple of them. Okay, another question. So for some, you know that some of the banks where, say example, they have approved for 10,000 and then later on they decide to take back 2,500 or 3,000. What is the loan amount approved? Is it the actual, because they decided to take the idle advance money. So
Well, if they did that, they're gonna have to give the money back, number one. So it'll be, yeah, there's a congressional, by law, they should not have taken it. And there's certain banks that did that. And they shouldn't have, as far as I can tell. It's going to be what the original loan amount was. It wasn't, even if, if they got 10,000 and 2,500 was taken by Bank A, it's still the 10,000 was the PPP loan amount.
So I did come across where they have appealed and asked for the money back. Say example, I don't know if it's a good idea to name banks, but the bank actually
No.
refused.
Yes, I know who the bank is, and no, do not name names. But yes, they will have to give the money back.
Okay.
Congress has just passed the law saying they should not have removed the idle advance from the PPP loan.
Okay, that's great. So I will let the person know. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go through questions now. Okay, so here's a question. If they were to apply for PPP2, should they apply for loan forgiveness first, or they should apply for
No.
PPP2?
Let's put it this way. They do not have to apply for PPP1 loan forgiveness first. They only have to attest that they've used or intend to use the money. That's it.
So from my side, I will encourage you to apply for loan forgiveness. I will encourage you to apply for PPP2 first and then apply for loan forgiveness. That's what I was told by Amanda. I'm just speaking for Amanda now.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
I see one here. Let me help the 1099 people.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So remember in PPP2, which we're not actually talking about today, but we'll allude to it. The first point of eligibility with PPP2 is that you got PPP1. The second point of eligibility is that in any quarter, and that is calendar quarters in 2020, so say the second quarter of 2020, you have to have a 25% or greater loss in revenue compared to the second quarter, the identical second quarter for 2019. If you have those two situations where you've gotten PPP1 and you have a 25% or greater loss in revenue quarter in 2020 compared to quarter in 2019, you're eligible for PPP2. Okay? So that's one of the most important things.
Okay, so I think go ahead.
So for somebody like a 1099 person who doesn't have P&Ls, somebody is playing music in the back.
Okay, go ahead.
Hopefully they didn't mute themselves. So a 1099 person that doesn't normally do P&Ls, what I've instructed them to do is one of the ways to prove a reduction of revenue.
这个重力有一拐过那个瘸子吧？
对，还是有点点讲。
哦，是嘞，太努力了。
Okay,
谢谢。
You mute everybody.
I muted everybody.
Okay. So what you need to do is basically take your bank statements from, say, the second quarter of 2020 and compare them to the same bank statements for April, May, June for 2019. if your bank statements, your revenue in your bank statements in 2019 was 100,000, and your bank statements in 2020 between April and June, your revenue, the money you deposited was 20,000. That will,
Please mute yourself so we don't interrupt this meeting here. Please mute yourself. Thank you.
so that will basically help you prove the most important or the second most important point of PPP2 eligibility, which is if you're a 1099 contractor, you can use your bank statements. Okay.
So I think the question was also earlier, you mentioned that it's federally tax deductible. I'm guessing that, say example, you receive $1 million in 1099, you just need to add the money received onto the PAL, not so much as onto the actual commission or 1099.
No, but you can only get up to 100,000 anyway, so you'd be limited to 100,000. But yeah, if you had a 1099s valued at $1 million, you're very lucky. And yeah, your tax from your tax filing standpoint, your Schedule C, you would have to put that $1 million as your revenue. Yeah, but that's a whole different story.
Not the 1 million plus 20,000.
Mhm. So 1099 individuals, do we deduct payroll? 1099s are contractors, and you're implying for yourself, you wouldn't have a payroll. I mean, so that doesn't make any sense. Now, if you receive 1099 funds, but you own a business, because I own a business, okay? I get 1099 funds every year. People are basically telling me, this is what we paid you. This is what we paid you over the year to me or my company. You basically, anything as a business, I would apply for PPP using W-2 employees. As an individual, I would use a 1099, but remember, you can only get compensated up to $100,000.
Okay.
All right. Want to give
All
me
right.
a couple more questions and then I have to bug out of here.
Do you want to answer these questions or you want me to actually?
I could scroll down. I can
Okay,
scroll.
cool. All right.
Okay, there isn't that many. So a lot of 1099 questions. The forgiveness. Yeah, there is no forgiveness in EIDL. EIDL basically is a 30-year loan at 3.75% interest. So there is no, everybody asks me from time to time, are they ever considering forgiving the EIDL loans? As far as I know, no. And I think you want to put in, I'm not sure what Amanda's email is. Is it PPP 2021?
Yep.
Yeah, somebody asked for Amanda's contact
Let me
information.
do that real quick.
Now, as far as I know, because I talk to Amanda probably every couple of days. The only way and the best way to reach her is by email. That's, I can call her personally because I know her personally as a friend. As far as when it comes to you reaching out to her, and if I was reaching out to her for business reasons, definitely use the email. I do officially, these slides, Chimping, are yours to use as you want, but officially I can't say that you can distribute them. Okay.
Well, it's recorded. So this
That's
is recorded. We're going to put on YouTube Live later. We're on
That's
Facebook Live. So in case you need to rewatch it, you're probably better with Joe staying and explaining to you than actually you just reading it. So we'll definitely disperse the slides and also the YouTube link after the meeting here.
Okay. I'm looking for frequently asked questions on the thing. Okay. Are EIDL advance payments of interest on mortgage obligations eligible for loan forgiveness? Are advance payments of interest? No, it's only interest you pay. So it's only for the months, the 8 or 24 weeks of the covered period. You can't pay interest on advance using EIDL funds. What effect does the borrower's reduction in employee salaries and wages have on the loan forgiveness amount? If you have to cut your employees' pay because of, you're on a reduced operation or something to that effect, as long as you don't reduce them by more than 25%, you're still eligible for forgiveness. How should borrowers seeking loan forgiveness account for a reduction in base and reduction in number of employees relative to the reduction relating to salary and wages? This is a crazy question. I'm not going to answer it. Can borrowers switch from an 8-week period to a 24-week covered period? Absolutely. And a lot of you independent contractors, you should use a 24-week period, even if you really disperse the money in 8. You should say 24 weeks because then you get full forgiveness. Forgiveness applications began, they were forgiven starting August 10th. So that's still in play. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, that was the only questions I had. Is there a second round of idle? Yes, there's a second round of idle. There's also a second round of idle advance. So let me cover that real quickly. The idle advanced second version is going to be really focused on minority and underserved communities. So for all intents and purposes, what's happening is two things. The SBA is sending out an email. If you receive an email and it states that we understand you received the idle advance the first time, but you didn't receive the full $10,000, they're going to give you the opportunity to get the difference. So say you only got $2,000, not the full 10, they're going to send you the additional 8 if you request it. On the idle advance 2 or second version, they will contact you if you are a business that is in a minority or underserved community. Idle advance is not going to be open to all people, just to those in the underserved and minority communities. And then idle advance or idle, the program itself, which was supposed to end on December 31st, 2020, is now ending to December 31st, 2021. And the PPP program, PPP2, for those who are not aware, I alluded to it earlier. If you want to do a PPP2 application, you have to have that application in before March 31st. Yes. Okay. I think that's it.
I have questions. I have questions. I want to clarify for people.
Okay.
So, questions about like the typical Uber and Lyft drivers. Can they be combining Uber and Lyft?
Yes.
1099s.
Up to $100,000. Yes, they can use their 1099Ks is what they usually get from Uber and Lyft. And yes, they can use it up to $100,000.
Right. And a lot of banks, are they really open to, oh yes, I kind of want to, so now that you did mention, a lot of banks are allowing people to use 1099, say apply, but some of them may also still ask for the Schedule C. Do we need to provide that to them?
Say that again.
So if you're applying, if you're using 1099 or 1099K to apply, do you need to provide Schedule C as well or not?
With some lenders, yes, you absolutely have to provide it. Some lenders, no.
Okay, so the question is the answer is some lenders. So Adria just said, I'm an Uber driver. This is the time you definitely want to connect with Amanda or connect with the person who invited you, because you could actually use the 1099 or 1099K to get approved with much higher amounts.
Yes, because if use your Schedule C, they're going to go by line 31 in your Schedule C, which is going to be your actual income less all your expenses, and you're going to end up in a situation where you're not going to get a very large PPP loan. Again, what you have to do is certain banks that we're aware of are just asking for the 1099, and it's that simple. Okay,
well, I think we answered all the questions here. If no one else have questions, then we're probably just gonna have Hani. I mean, I'm gonna have Joe off the line, and then I could actually just, Amanda's gonna show up probably or after 1 or 1 o'clock. So if you guys want to talk to Amanda, we could actually have a Q&A session with Amanda in a bit. But for me, I'm just gonna have the panel open just so in case people still want to talk. But yeah, anyone else have questions for Joe? Or if not, we're gonna let him go because he does have very busy schedule.
Yeah, unmute yourself and ask. I've got like 2 questions. Time for 2 more questions.
So question, is 1099 paying ourselves tax deductible? If you are at 1099 and you receive the money, is that tax deductible?
No, I mean, if you receive compensation of any type, it's taxable. I mean, it's America. So any compensation you receive is taxable over $600, I think is the number. So yeah.
So it's tax deductible. Awesome, great.
No, it's taxable.
Oh, it's taxable.
Yeah,
okay.
Revenue is taxed. Revenue is taxed.
Right,
Expenses are the deduction.
Okay, so 1099. So if you are independent contractor who are applying and you received, so the money is going to be taxable.
Taxable, yes. You usually include it on a Schedule C in your personal tax returns.
But for W-2, it's tax deductible.
Well, a W-2, you're an employee of someone else. Your income, your paid income is still taxable.
Right.
But then you have expenses against it as well.
Okay.
The SBA is paying my existing SBA loan for 6 months. Is that taxable? You know, that's a good question. I think they may send you a 1099-K for that. If they send you a 1099 for paying for those, that would be taxable. That is compensation. But since it's going to your business, it may not be. That's something I have to look into. That's a good question. Z Yang, whoever that is, thank you. Let me find out and I'll let you know, Chenping, what the answer is on that.
Okay, Joe, we need to clarify on the 1099s for that again, because
Okay.
people who have, I received different information from you at a different time before. Okay, so money you receive from, let's go with the number 2 rule that just changed recently. Federally tax, what is it? PPP funds are federally tax deductible, right? So that means that just like how you have said, if someone had revenue, say example, $1 million, you don't have to really include that in revenue, but for your P&L, technically you could actually deduct it. Now, is there a difference with 1099s, independent contractors? Can they also not show up on their revenue or their commission or their income coming in? And can they actually count it towards, part of their deductions for the money that they pay themselves?
Well, there's way too many questions in one. Any compensation you receive as an individual is taxable. Any compensation, 1099, payroll, anything. On your tax form, it asks you, what did you receive in W-2 income? Okay? On your tax form, if you have a company, if you set up a company and you receive 1099 income, normally you're going to take that income and put it onto your Schedule C of your personal tax return.
Okay.
And so it could be Joe Amato Uber service, and I get $114,000 from Uber because in my 1099K. So I'm going to put that $114,000 in my Uber as my compensation, as my income for my little sole proprietor, sole business that I own. But then I've got tolls, I've got gas, I've got repairs to my car, I've got other expenses that I'm not going to assess against that $115,000 that I got from Uber. And hopefully at the end of the day, you're going to have all your expenses, you're going to put your amount in that you received as an independent contractor in Schedule C, you're having expenses that go against it. And then whatever that bottom line is, line 31, your net profit, that's going to go on the front page of your personal tax return as taxable income. Okay.
Okay, so I feel like I just want to clarify. Is it, I know that it's almost like a white, a washout, right? Where the money you receive to the individual is taxable for 1099s, but from your company, where it's being dispersed from the company or from your organization, technically you can deduct it.
Yes.
Right. So if they are Uber driver, for example, they apply, they get the maximum funding, let's say 100,000, they get that 20,000, right? They disperse it to themselves. That amount is taxable. But
No. Okay. The receipt of money is not taxable. That 20,832, as I said earlier, is not a taxable amount. No.
Okay.
So the PPP funds themselves are a grant and they are not taxable. No.
Okay. All right. Got you. So, okay. So it is tax deductible. That's it. Let's just stick with that.
No, it's the wrong, it has no taxable impact. It's a non-taxable event. You receive PPP funds, it's a non-taxable event. How you expense the PPP funds are taxable or are eligible expenses. But so say your business makes $100,000 and you got $20,832 in PPP funds, and you spent $20,832 on payroll. So that 100,000 doesn't become 120,832. It stays at 100,000. But the expense, the 20,832, is an expense against the 100,000.
That is beautifully answered question, because that was very good that I think everybody really appreciate that. I mean, that's with the Congress as well, a lot of appreciation. So okay. Sister said because W-2 is taxable by the state.
Well, W-2 is taxed, individuals are taxed through their company and they're taxed as individuals. So you get $1,000 a week payroll and you're paying $250 every payroll to federal taxes, $100 every payroll to your state taxes, which we don't have here in Nevada, but you would have in Pennsylvania. So yeah, I mean, every individual is taxed as an individual, but the company is getting PPP in order to pay them so that they have money, and then they're taxed normally as if they're receiving regular compensation.
Yes, definitely no double tax. No double tax.
No. Okay.
That's really good news. Thank you very much, Joe. We are at 1 hour here, and I guess we're just waiting for we're just gonna wait for Amanda to hop on real quick in case anyone else have questions or any idea if they want to learn a little bit more about the lender she's going through and how does she work. But that's all we have here for Joe, and he does have a very busy schedule. I hope that through this session here, we are able to create more awareness. Some of you guys didn't know you could apply. This is the time to share with your friends and family. Let them know to hop on. And if you guys want to be in network with us, especially remember that picture I told you, screenshot, add our information so we could add you onto the Facebook Messenger group, or we could add you onto the WeChat groups that Joe is actually personally involved in. He has been definitely generously answering a lot of questions, which he doesn't have to, but he has been. So thank you very much, Joe. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. We'll do it again if you need me. Okay.
Sounds good. Definitely.
I got to get off and get to another meeting. Thanks, guys. Everybody, good luck. Be safe. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good luck, bullish.